Okay, it's the film nerd, Eden Rabatsch here, and no surfer dude. He's out doing whatever he does. And today we're going to talk about Wonder Woman. And I think anybody who's read a paper or is into movies has really been anticipating, dreading Wonder Woman coming out. And the reason being that this has been a pretty bad summer for films. B, there's still a bit of a taint of what happened to Ghostbusters, where it had an all-female cast, and a lot of insecure men were really worried that they were rebooting, a film from 20 years ago. So out comes Wonder Woman, which is really, an icon of both comic books, superheroes, but also for, a different type of protagonist, the strongest woman really in comic books. And it could go terribly wrong. DC have had a horrible run of films, and now we have Patty Jenkins has come along to direct Wonder Woman, and look, it is one of the most enjoyable comic book films that I have seen in years, and arguably the best comic book film since maybe Captain America, First Avenger, and all the way to what I consider the best one, Heath Ledger as the Joker in The Dark Knight. So let's talk about why it's really an interesting film. One, I think because it's set in World War One. So by setting it in World War One, you get to do a few things. You get to do a bit of a fish out of water, so that you get to have Wonder Woman come into a male-dominated universe after living with the Amazons, where it's a completely female-centric world. So you get to do some really interesting jokes about where women were at that time and the suffragette movement, etc. Also, you get to have a world dominated by warfare and violence in a way which is meaningful. And what I mean by that is most superhero films, we're now really quite bored with that trope of an alien or some sort of ridiculous kind of supernatural power comes and there's blue lights in the sky and New York or Gotham or whatever gets destroyed, and you kind of think more people died probably in the defense of the world than actually maybe what the aliens would have done. So all of a sudden you're set in World War One. The stakes are a lot lower because it's a world war. You can't really affect the whole world. So Wonder Woman just has to do what she can do in protecting humanity as she finds it. And that combination allows her to be an actual hero. And what I mean by that is, often now we're used to these jaded heroes who go, well, what are we fighting for? She says outright, I am fighting for humans and I fight in the name of love. And then she accrues a team of people who are like-minded, all been a little bit destroyed by society. And when they see her, they get on board, which wouldn't be hard because Gal Gadot is just beautifully charming. And what I mean by that is she looks like she could do all the Wonder Woman, super violence and be, the best fighter of her and any age, being a demigoddess, but also because she actually cares. She's never been in this world. So Patty Jenkins does some great stuff where she just allows some subtlety into the film. And you don't think that would exist if Zack Snyder was directing or maybe some other guy. So there's an opportunity early on in the film where she has ice cream for the first time. She's lived on a Greek island and she really enjoys that moment. So there's these little things which break up the fighting, which really well done by Jenkins. Gal Gadot's great. Chris Pine is just fantastic as that hero who is obviously great looking, he's a good looking guy, he's obviously charismatic, but he knows his role. He's the love interest, although it's, very asexual kind of film. In fact, that makes it great. I mean, there's some dance sequences later on, which really, compared again to some other films where it's full on sexual tension, this is a lot more subtle, and he does really well as that role of trying to guide Wonder Woman and give a more of a realism check to her view of the world. On top of that, you have back when they're on the Greek island, you have Robin Wright as Antiope, General Antiope, and really, when you consider that she started off as Buttercup in Princess Bride, to go all the way to this hardcore general, more a House of Cards figure than anything else that she's played. She does really well in establishing the kind of world which could produce such a fighter as Diana. Okay, so before we move on to spoilers, let's just sum everything up. What this film does is, it is like a Marvel film set in the DC universe, so that really lifts the stakes. Patty Jenkins does a great job. I mean, when you consider she came on the scene about 10 years ago, she wrote and directed Monster, which got Charlize Theron an Academy Award, and then you would think she'd have a great career. What happens? They put her in TV for 10 years. They grab her out to do Wonder Woman, which has had a lot of problems. A lot of people couldn't get their heads around how would you tell this story in the modern world, and she has been able to do it. And I think she brings a different type of energy to it. There's a naivety to Diana Prince. It's really, really back to human stakes, and I really enjoyed that. When you consider that after the Ghostbusters disaster, this real backlash, especially with male energy about, women being involved in these kind of high concept films, especially comic book films, and this summer being just absolutely hopeless. Alien Covenant, Baywatch, Pirates of the Caribbean, so bad that studios were getting angry at Rotten Tomatoes and websites and people like me who would say, don't go and see this film, it's hopeless. To come out, and as of the taping today, it's over $100 million. Word of mouth is great. People are really enjoying this film, and for the right reason. So I'm going to talk about, there are some problems. There's not that many, but I'm going to talk about them after spoilers. Okay, back with spoilers. Now we can just talk about what is happening in the rest of the film. And actually, it's not that kind of film which you can spoil. It's a comic book film, it's Wonder Woman. Wonder Woman's going to win at the end of the day. But there is a major spoiler, and that is that David Thewlis, the great actor, and if you're watching Fargo season 3, which I think is actually lackluster compared to Fargo 1 and 2, every scene which has David Thewlis on board is just brilliant. And he is very good in this, although, not the complete scene stealer. And he plays a member of Parliament. I'm just going to look at my notes. What's his name? Sir Patrick Morgan. But we find out that he actually is Ares, the god of war, who has been the villain, always behind human history. And even though he was defeated by Zeus, he is slowly creeping back into humanity and history by creating all these wars. And he's really behind World War I. And Diana is the only person who kind of works this out. Like everyone else is just working on a human level. And Diana works out that really to stop World War I, you need to stop Ares. And so there's that twist there. I think you can kind of pick it, only because once I saw David, I went, wow, he's such a great actor. If someone's got to be Ares, I don't think it's going to be the pantomime villains. So you have General Ludendorff, played by Danny Houston, and his offsider, this over-the-top person, and I'm just going to check her name, Elena Anaya, and she plays Dr. Maru, otherwise Dr. Poison, and she's just complete pantomime comic book. But I don't mind that, because if I'm watching a comic book with Wonder Woman who's got a golden lasso and can block bullets, I don't mind that you've got some villains who are just a little bit crazy. And you kind of need that, because Ares is too gigantic. He's too out of this world. You need some humans doing evil. And also it does two things. It allows you to have a bit of a nod that, because she uses gas, Dr. Poison, you're kind of thinking, gas is associated with World War One, but it's also associated with the evils of World War Two. So you get a bit of a tip of the hat that these are the Germans who will lose World War One and then re-establish the Nazi Party in World War Two. It's interesting because you're not quite sure what happens to Steve, Chris Pine's character. He's also a hero, but I know he signed a multi-picture deal. I assume he'll come back for World War II. They can age him a little bit. So, look, the problems with the film are great beginning. Second act is quite strong, actually, which is often a problem in comic book and action films, because they kind of got to get everything going. The third act really drags on a little bit. You kind of know by that stage we're going to have this big fight, and you just kind of want to get there. And, you know, there's some little things which they do which are just slightly annoying. But overall, this is a really solid film, and one that you could take, anyone to the film who's a teen. Probably some of the stuff with the gas might be a little bit too much for younger children. But generally, if I had a teenage daughter, this is the film I would be going to see. So that's it for today. I'm going to start doing more things which are just very short news items. I haven't done them today because I had a lot to say about Wonder Woman. You can catch me on Twitter, Guru Eden, and keep coming back to the YouTube channel, because I'm going to start trying to update that more regularly. Okay, see you later.